Well, I can agree with a lot of people that the making of this movie was a bit unnecessary. You really didn't need a sequel to Chinatown. I think a lot of people's criticisms is that it's just not Chinatown. Hey everybody, what's going on? Today we're going to be talking about the sequel to a movie that many consider one of the greatest movies of all time, at least one of the best reviewed movies of all time. And this is something I forgot to bring up in my last review. If you look at the Rotten Tomato score for Chinatown, there's only one rotten review from reviewers on there, and it's from Gene Siskel. So I would love to see if there. I imagine there's an episode of Siskel and Ebert out there where they talk about Chinatown. I'm gonna have to look that up. But knowing that he was the only one, he gave it like a 2.5 out of 4, and everyone else is giving it like almost perfect scores. I would love to hear his reasons why. I saw in the little blurb they have there, he just thought it was a tedious movie. So I would be curious to see that. But anyway, today we are going to be talking about the sequel to that movie, 1990's The Two Jakes, starring Jack Nicholson, Harvey Keitel, Madeline Stowe, and others. I will warn you, there might be some minor spoilers in this one. I will say this. I thought this movie did at least one thing better than Chinatown. One of my complaints about Chinatown, it's a little hard to follow because there's so much going on. Still a great movie, and I highly recommend it, but there's just a lot going on. This movie did one thing better. You have Jack Nicholson narrating the movie, and he kind of explains things as things are going on. So I like that a lot. Also, we don't have to worry about not talking about the director of this movie because Jack Nicholson takes over the director's chair. One thing I found curious about this, and this is just a thought, this is just an opinion or a theory even. The reason why this movie is made, I don't know if these movies are based on books or anything. But I wondered if Nicholson, he loves this character, I'm sure, and it is one of his best characters ever. He's just fantastic, especially in Chinatown. He was really good in The Two Jakes as well, but he was definitely turning into the Jack Nicholson we know in 1990 versus the younger actor Nicholson in 74. I wondered if maybe he just wanted to see Jack Gittes. I wondered if he wanted to see him win in the end because, of course, in Chinatown, he does not win. Even though he has all the answers, he's just kind of ignored. And also, they bring some story elements from the first one into this. And I will talk about that near the end of the video. And I just wondered if he wanted to see some. I wanted to see if he wanted to see Jake get it. I think he wanted to make this because Jake Gittes could get the W in this. So yeah, there might be some minor spoilers in this. This movie is set in the late 40s, about 10, 11 years after Chinatown. We find out that Gittes served in the war. Also, Captain Escobar, I believe he was Lieutenant Escobar in the first one. He also served in the war. He came back with like a brace on his leg and everything. So the war has happened. They're back. Gittes's business is booming. He's got a really big building, and he's got lots of employees, and things are booming for him. And he is approached by Harvey Keitel's character, also named Jake, hence the name of the movie, The Two Jakes. Harvey Keitel's character is supposed to catch his wife in the act of being unfaithful. And they're going to record it. And what they're trying to do is to coach him to what to say when he approaches her while she's in the act. So they rehearse it, and he's got all these details and everything. And as him catching her goes down, all of a sudden there's gunshots, and the guy that was with his wife is murdered. But so Harvey Keitel's character is going to be he's of course being accused of murder, he's claiming crime of passion, and that'll get him off, from the courts. But you have Jake Gittes with this recording, and that's a lot of the crux of this movie is everybody wants this recording. Everybody wants it because it's going to prove what happened, because the guy that was with Harvey Keitel's character's wife was a bigwig, and it all has to do with they're wanting oil off this land. So of course, just like Chinatown, there's big money involved, and that's another reason why I thought Nicholson probably wanted to make this, because he wanted to get one up over on, like, he wanted his character to be like, I beat the rich this time, right? So anyway, there's that trial going on, or that they show bits and pieces of that trial, but the whole thing is Gittes just following all the clues, trying to figure out where the gun came from, trying to figure out why this happened, and just everything that's going on. So that's the basic setup for the movie. Again, Nicholson is great as Gittes in this. Again, though, we've got more of the Jack Nicholson that we knew in the 90s. He's a lot more cynical. That being said, you can kind of chalk that up to, he's been through a war and everything, so he could be a little bit more cocky. He made it through a war practically unscathed. One thing I didn't really notice on him, I kind of wish they would have put a scar on his nose, and if they did, you just can't see it, because the way he was cut on his nose in the first one, you'd think that scar would still be there, but hey, his business is booming. Maybe he can afford great plastic surgery, I guess. But yeah, you have his character, and he's just as good. And again, I love that he narrates the movie this time, so that way, if you're feeling a little lost, you can kind of get caught up, because you get Jack Nicholson telling you. I know it's a poor impression. You got Jack Nicholson telling you what's going on during the movie, right? Sorry, my impression isn't as good as Tom Cruise and A Few Good Men. But I do like that he's kind of keeping you going with the story. But what's cool about this one, as well as the original Chinatown, as I mentioned in that review, you start to think like Gittes, so you're always looking for clues. Anything anyone says, anything in the background, and you will start to notice things. You're like, okay, that's going to come up later. Okay, that's going to come up later. Heck, even one or two of the same locations from Chinatown pop up, and it actually plays into the story, because in the story, some of his past comes back, and let's just say someone Gittes was involved with in Chinatown, that story comes back into play, and that's probably my biggest gripe of the movie. Not that story came back into play, but I'll just say you're gonna see the twist coming a mile away. Now, when Gittes reveals it, he just kind of like, he figures it out slower than anybody else, at least the audience. I don't think a lot of the characters know. I know a couple of the characters know the twist, but Gittes figured it out pretty late. I figured it out, very, very quickly into the movie. I'm like, if that's not the twist, I'm like, then wow, you threw me off. There was some red herring somewhere. So you have a twist that's very predictable, and I wish they would have hit it better. But yeah, they didn't hide it very well. But yeah, I'd give you a clue, but then you'd really figure it out fast. I also like the performances. Harvey Keitel's really good in this. He's not in it a ton. He's in it at the beginning, then you don't see him for a while, and then he pops back up, and he's really good in this, and I liked his story arc. I liked Meg Tilly's story arc as well. Madeline Stowe's pretty good in this. Again, Perry Lopez returns as Escobar. He's the captain now, and I like him. He still is good. Then we have the character of Loach, who I said I wasn't sure if he was the son of the Loach from the first movie, but he is. David Keith plays the new Loach. He's not in it very much, And really his character I feel is there. I like him in it. Don't get me wrong, because Keith David's see, I did it. It's not Keith David, David Keith. I still want to see Keith David and David Keith in a buddy cop movie together. But David Keith, he's not in it very much, but he's good in it. But I think his character's there just so Gittes can get one up on a Loach. Um, and let's say he does. James Hong is in this one as well. He was the butler. He was the butler for Faye Dunaway's character in the first one. And he shows back up because, again, Gittes is kind of chasing ghosts of the past, so to speak. And James Hong's awesome, so I like seeing him in both movies. So, yeah, this movie, again, it feels a lot like Chinatown. I feel like in some ways they were trying to recreate Chinatown, where you had, this story going on, but then there's also a bigger story going on that has to do with, like, the rich. Of course, again, in this one, I think Nicholson wanted Gittes to get one over on the rich in this, so he definitely gets to do that in this one. The Two Jakes, it's not as good as Chinatown. Of course it's not. But it's still a really good movie. Again, I think a lot of people were really not liking this because maybe it felt a little too little too late, or it was they felt it was unnecessary. And in some ways I feel it was kind of unnecessary, but I still enjoyed it. It was still a slow-burning detective story with Gittes leading the way with Nicholson narrating, and I did like that. And I liked, in some ways, even though I saw the twist coming, I still liked how it ended up. But yeah, it was a solid movie. And like Chinatown right now, as of this taping, it's free on Amazon Prime. So if you want to check out both of them. I watched them back to back within a couple days, and it was kind of nice to see that story, because I think if you saw this in '90, you would have had to go back and watch Chinatown before watching this. You got to know Chinatown before you watch The Two Jakes, because again, there's some stories that interweave. But yeah, I do recommend it. Again, not as good as Chinatown, but The Two Jakes is still a pretty solid detective story as well. That's it. See you later.